Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today and welcome to our State of the Union. Glenn, Michael, Leo, thanks for being here. I know everyone's really eager to hear your thoughts. So, with that, let me welcome Glenn Sanford, of course, our CEO and founder, Michael Valdez, our Chief Growth Officer, and Leo Pareja, our Chief Strategy Officer. And they're going to share some prepared remarks with us about the State of the Union, the industry, and eXp and how we're fitting into that. Please note that Glenn, Leo, and Michael may share some. They're sharing their own opinions. They may include some forward-looking statements, and so as always, we encourage you to look at our public filings for language and risks regarding the company and things to keep in mind. And we don't take on the obligation to update our forward-looking statements. And I also want to direct people to our Q&A feed here. If you have any questions as Michael, Leo, and Glenn are talking, feel free to put your question in the chat. I'm going to give them to Glenn, Michael, and Leo after they share their thoughts, and they're going to go ahead and try and get through as many questions as we can. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to you, Glenn.
Okay, awesome. And that's on the YouTube, so you have to actually ask the questions on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? That's where you're monitoring the questions?
That's right, Glenn. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
if anyone listening wants to put their questions into YouTube.
Okay, awesome. First of all, thank you everyone for watching. Obviously this industry is in flux for a variety of reasons. Whether it be interest rates or lawsuits or innovation or disruption. There's a lot of things that are going on and will continue to go on long after the stuff we're going to talk about today will have transpired or developed, et cetera. Our first and foremost goal in all of this is to make sure that real estate professionals have chose to be in the business of real estate, that you have opportunities to be gainfully employed, to build businesses, to be in your communities, make the differences in those communities that you do in this noble profession of residential real estate. We're carefully and thoroughly monitoring the fast-moving litigation occurring all over the country. You can't open up any of the real estate news sites and not read yet another headline about another something happening legally. We have, in fact, retained the best-in-class counsel and are extremely confident in our defense strategy and long-standing practices. We aim for best practices that promote consumers' best interests and to be compliant with the law. This includes encouraging agent commission negotiations and upholding transparent practices. Really, and this isn't in my prepared remarks per se, but we are a platform. We built the platform to address the needs of agents because I was an active agent in the market, and it's to allow you to build unique and interesting businesses on a nationwide, really worldwide platform in compliance with all of the rules, regs, and unique nuances in each of the markets. We strongly believe that the cooperative system here in North America has a significant net positive impact on the economy and consumers. The nuanced data sets and business rules provide consumers with accurate, timely information translating into the most liquid and transparent real estate market in the world. We have substantial concerns that the current headwinds could cause a decline in U.S. homeownership rates. As we see, many headlines in the media right now are not taking into account that the likely effects of these lawsuits, being the deterrence of the buy-side representation, cooperative home search platforms and processes, and agent commission reductions, will have meaningful negative impacts on consumers, especially first-time home buyers, and disproportionately affecting low to moderate income buyers. Home ownership has long been the single largest asset for most Americans and is the fundamental rung in the economic ladder of upward mobility in our country. What's more, these financial awards and settlements don't meaningfully help consumers, but often simply exist to enrich plaintiffs' attorneys. Leo, I'll turn it over to you. And Leo, your mic is muted.
Thank you, Glenn. One of the things that you mentioned that is also not my prepared remarks that I take very seriously is the three of us who lead this company, we're all licensed agents, and not just pretend for a little bit like some other folks in other companies who just tried it before starting a company. This is how we all fed our families. We're all products of this industry, and we care deeply about this. So we are true champions of consumers, and we think that these lawsuits do not serve their best interests at all. However, we're very confident that we're best situated to deal with this due to eXp's agile model. It's resilient. Glenn launched this company during a financial crisis, and it's built to weather change. We have an asset-light model that allows us to scale up and down and adjust to any condition faster and easier than any of our competitors. Our strong cash flow profile enables us to pursue an ambitious and innovative agent-centric model. We're fully scaled across the United States. Don't forget, we are publicly traded, which gives us easier access to capital through debt and equity. And we truly believe that we're better situated than any of our counterparts who are substantially over-leveraged with debt at this moment. In these plaintiffs' actions, they've not alleged that individual agents were co-conspirators, nor could they sue our agent teams, as our agent teams are not legal entities. I'm not saying that doesn't go for other business models, but the way we're structured. To date, plaintiffs have gone after brokerage license holders, including independent teams at franchises. With that said, agents of eXp benefit from eXp's agile business model, positive cash flow, and agent-centric commitment with our long-standing practice and policy of ethical and compliant negotiations. With that, I'll hand it over to Michael.
Thank you, Leo. And we are, as Leo said, we're part of this industry. We were always a part of this industry. We just got back from doing regional rallies, 29 of them across the country, including some in Canada as well. These questions kept coming up. We are part of this community. Leo, you've mentioned the model a few times. We are incredibly confident in our model, in our ability to support the most productive agents and teams who will continue to deliver important value to consumers in the most important transaction of their lives. That doesn't change, right? It's important to remember that historically speaking, 4 to 7 million Americans sell homes every year. And the vast majority of these consumers prefer to have an expert represent them. We strongly support the National Association of Realtors as they indicated that they're going to appeal, and we agree with their defense and its merits. The reality is that the potential outcomes of the litigation or injunctive actions could have far-reaching consequences that are not in the consumer's best interests, and we are being overlooked by the current headlines. Now, with those prepared statements, we just want to open it up to all of you. We want to be here to be transparent, to answer your questions, to ease any concerns and fears you might have by the headlines that, as Glenn said, seems to be changing and updating hourly. So with that, we'll open it up back to you, Olivia, to moderate the Q&A portion of this, and we'll do our best here.
Thank you, guys. We're getting a lot of great feedback in the chat, and thanks to everyone for attending. It's fun to see how much great participation we have from all over the world, really. One question I wanted to bring up for you guys, and I'll let anyone jump in who you think is best, but someone asked, what can agents do to, help to further, not just bolster our defense, but to really encourage good practices in the industry? Glenn, maybe this is a good question for you to answer.
Yeah, I think the one thing, and one of our values as a company is transparency. Transparency and integrity is another core value. But making sure that your buyer or seller understand the how residential real estate is conducted, who brings the money to a real estate transaction. There's always this debate as to who actually pays the commission. And I say that because the seller has historically been sort of negotiating with their listing agent to come up with a commission structure that creates traffic to their listings and ultimately gets their home sold, and hopefully in the least amount of time for the most amount of money. But the buyer is actually the one that brings the money to the transaction. So without a buyer, there is no commission being paid. So you can say the seller pays the commission, but it's in some respects it's the buyer that pays the commission because they ultimately have bought the property in question. Uh, when you think about it, in the future, they're going to be different conversations. But the more you can talk about it with your client, whether they be a buyer or a seller, that that this is how we get paid as individual agents, and this is the way real estate brokerages work, and these are the marketing costs that often in other parts of the world are paid up front by sellers. No, this is something that's really interesting. We've kind of been diving into is this, when we go to other countries, and we're operating now in 24 countries. In many countries, sellers are maybe just responsible for a listing side commission, but they're paying upfront, sometimes thousands, not tens of thousands of dollars of ongoing costs to the point of actually getting the property sold. And if the property doesn't sell, they're sometimes out that 10, 15, $20,000 in marketing costs. And then they got to go back again and start the process again to try to get their home sold. So there's the nice thing about the way it's set up currently in the US is that buyers are able to be represented by people who have their best interests, uh, and they don't have to fundamentally say, here's what I'm willing to pay. And of course, if they're a first-time home buyer or from as mentioned, low moderate income type of situation, they may not have the quote unquote ability to pay for that representation with a high quality agent who they would like to represent them in that purchase. And so there's a whole bunch of various different variables that exist that we and maybe not we. I personally believe that these lawsuits are ill-conceived. We talk to financial people all the time. I just got finished. Leo and I were at this Stevens conference, and we talked to a number of investors. And of course, this commission lawsuit came up as part of it. And then, but there's a when we started to actually talk about the fact that if somebody buys $1 million home and there's a commission attached to it, whatever that is, whether it be something akin to what's being accused by plaintiffs' attorneys or what have you, that in the scheme of things, it may not be that important. I looked at this and I've made this comment over the years that I don't actually believe that consumers are commission sensitive as much as they are relationship sensitive, meaning that they want to work with who they know, like, and trust. And that and in order for the types of people to be able to sell real estate in particular markets, there's a need to be able to afford themselves to actually live in the markets that they sell in. And some of the arguments is, yeah, they're getting quote unquote paid too much, but in order to be in the markets that you actually serve, that sometimes means commission dollars are higher. It's not a flat fee. It's not like somebody in, not to pick on Omaha, but somebody in Omaha, Nebraska in a call center can help you for a low dollar amount to buy property in Manhattan or San Francisco or where have you. And so that's on the higher dollar. On the lower dollar, we want to make sure that we have great representation in all markets of the United States, which I'm super proud of. Like, we serve all the markets with agents. So there's just a lot of really unique moving parts in this industry, and I'm proud to be in this industry. I started as a buyer's agent in 2002, generating internet leads. I went on to build a buyer-based real estate team, and then I went and created a it was called Buyer Tours Realty. It was a buyer-based real estate firm, which ultimately we grew to 4 offices. And then that ultimately we pivoted that to become eXp Realty, to be a platform for real estate agents to build the types of unique businesses that I had built, and many other people around the country, around the world had built or wanted to build. And we wanted to be that place where agents could be creative. We've never, literally never dictated commissions, what you should charge, what you shouldn't charge. We've actually been agnostic. The only place we have not been agnostic is when you take a listing, we need to make sure that we cover our costs to clear that transaction through our platform. And so that means that you have to pay $500 if you're a non-capped agent in as company dollar, so that we can actually clear those transactions. But that's the only policy that we've ever had that I'm aware of around commissions that need to be charged. And agents will experiment, and we've had agents experiment with different amounts, and they've come up with different ways and to think about, how do I do this and that. And we've been supportive of many different practices in real estate, and haven't taken a position of, you need to charge this in order to be a real estate professional at eXp, as long as it provided enough company dollars so that we could clear the transactions. We were fine with it, and the numbers ended up being what the numbers were, not because we dictated or mandated. In fact, that was something we chose to do from day one, is not mandate anything. I know there have been firms, and I'd heard of firms that inside of companies you could mandate. We didn't even do that, even though in a individual company you had the ability to. And there are companies that made it and overtly advertise commissions on their ads, as to, you buy with us, you'll get commission rebates, or if you sell with us, we'll list it at this commission rate. And again, I go back to this idea that most consumers are not commission sensitive; they're relationship sensitive. And since relationships ultimately is what drives this is a relationship based business, and it's a relationship based economy. And as long as we are allowed to, which obviously you can't really legislate or litigate it out, that we can't have relationships with consumers, I believe it's always going to be a relationship based business.
Glenn, that was really well said, and it actually answers another question that a few people have asked, which is, and I assume they're coming from agents, but it could be true, I suppose, of our staff as well, and others at other brokerages. But they're asking, how do we defend all the chatter on social media, defaming, us or just our industry? And I think I'd ask that question to all of you if there's anything you want to add. But I think, Glenn, the way that you're responding to this is helpful in answering that question, which is I'm hearing it. I think the best thing we can do here is we all stand with the consumers in the housing market, and we want to see it succeed. But Glenn, I think you had some good pieces there that folks could share as well on their platforms if they agree with the statements. So let me pose another question. I just thought, gosh, in light of Veterans Day, I thought this was an interesting question, and something that maybe Michael, Leo, or Glenn, you guys maybe have considered. They asked, with the risk of maybe a buyer agency going away or being reduced or changing, are we approaching the VA regarding how this will negatively impact military buyers? And I just thought it was an interesting question, and if any of you have a thought on it, feel free to jump in.
I'll jump on that one. So that's actually one of our biggest concerns of who could be disproportionately affected. Low to moderate income buyers scrape together their down payment, whether it's 3%, 3.5% for FHA or 0% for the VA. And a lot of them have requirements as to what and what cannot be rolled into the loan. So, as this stuff moves forward, depending on where there is legislative action from anybody, whether it's the DOJ, the FTC, or anybody else, you better believe that we're going to be very loud to all the housing administrations, the entire FHFA, because some of this stuff that could get proposed could substantially affect people's ability to buy. And again, I would encourage anybody on this call to do what's called citizen lobby. It's one of the greatest unique value propositions that you're afforded as an American citizen. your people in Congress representing you on either house have to take your calls. And we are a very large group of folks that need to educate the legislators on what potentially is on the line. During the financial crisis, when the original versions of QM and QRM were being dreamt up, they were very, very bad. They were proposing elimination of any loan that was above an 80% down payment. And it was agents and experts in the field who had to educate their legislators to say that that would fundamentally break the US economy. And the default rates of a low down payment loan versus a 20% down loan are marginal. It was the 0%, no income, no assets that made a very big difference in the financial crisis. And I think the laws that came out of it were for the better of the consumer. I think this is one of these moments where we need to have a voice and very much speak to the folks that represent us in case this starts going the other way. But I truly believe we have the greatest real estate market in the world because of the systems that work well. Because you go to a website and it's solid data. It's not 9 different listings with the same house address with different prices, right? So the system that's been in place has been in place, and as Glenn said, we didn't create it. We were just operating within the rules that were there for us. But with that said, if there's any rule changes, and this is where we ask all of our agents to watch their communications from us very carefully. If there are any rule changes at a jurisdictional level that may vary from state to state, you guys all belong to north of 600 MLSs in 50 states. So we will be reacting swiftly to any update rule changes, but as where we stand, we've not done anything wrong, and we've just operated within the system of the rules that is in front of us.
Just want to add one thing to that, because Leo, that was so well said. And really, this question came up a few times when we were doing the regional rallies, and we did a few Q&A open forums on this subject. And it is what Leo is saying. We are now the largest independent in the space. We have an industry relations representative, which is Jason Gessing, our former CEO. And if there are things that affect a large number of our agents, we will be rallying. We will be having that voice for those that feel they're voiceless. You are not. You are part of this community. You are part of the largest family in our industry that is an independent real estate company. So we are looking at everything. We are hearing all of the voices, and we're rallying together as one.
Thank you, guys. And Leo, while you were talking, we got some questions trying to clarify what a citizen lobby is. And if I may, I think you're suggesting we each, speak to your representatives, local, state, national, people that represent you and where you have a voice, and use those channels to advocate, for the best interest of the industry. So I think that's where Leo was going. And thank you. Those were great comments, Michael and Leo. Glenn, a slightly different topic, but interesting and timely. Someone has asked a question about how do we see AI helping agents in the near future? And is there a part of this conversation that starts to dovetail with AI introduction into the industry and talking about these industry changes and shifts?
Yeah. So if we think about the sort of the evolution of technology in real estate, and I think about this in I bought my first home. It was in the 90s, and at that point, I bought through an agent at one firm. They had access to the MLS, but they had to go and actually search on their computer and print out a tear sheet without pictures or just addresses, and then you'd drive by the outside of the home, and then you'd say whether you wanted to go look at it, and then eventually they'd open them up. But everybody was a representative of the seller. Didn't matter if you worked for the listing agent directly or if you were a cooperating real estate firm representing the seller. You still represent the seller. So no matter what you said as a buyer at that point in time, had to be reported back from your agent back to the listing agent, who would then report it back to the seller. So if you said, hey, I want to offer, at the time, fairly inexpensive home, $50,000 for the home, but I can afford $65,000 for the home, the cooperating agent was actually obligated to actually tell the listing agent that you could pay $65,000 for the home. And so nobody worked in the buyer's best interest. That changed in probably the late 90s, early 2000s. The concept of buyer agency actually became a thing, and you could actually represent buyers. Now, commissions will still generally share the same, but you could now actually take a proactive role to actually support buyers. And about the same time, really early 2000s was when you could actually start to search for homes on the MLS, but you were using dial-up connections. But as an agent, because of all the data, especially around pictures and all that, you'd go to the physical office where the office existed, because to upload photos or download photos and do your stuff, you needed to be at a somewhere that had high-speed internet. Obviously, you fast forward to 2009, and now you had basically internet access, high speed, almost everywhere. Cable internet was now pretty much ubiquitous inside the home. You had 3G on your phones, and then eventually 4G, and now 5G. But you started to actually sort of lose the need to actually go to a physical office to go pick up the books or pick up tear sheets or any of that type of stuff as a consumer to actually go find property. So the internet and the web fundamentally made search, it democratized the search process of real estate. No longer was it hidden behind a wall. And there was a lot of fighting around this, by the way, because from 2002 to 2009, I was all about transparency and sharing the information. There's a lot of people who wanted to put forced registration and walls between the consumer and the information to create friction so they could sort of do what it was that they wanted to do. I was all about sort of, hey, let's embrace this thing called the internet and embrace the web to empower consumers to find properties. And so our whole thing was around taking virtual tours from a buyer's perspective, so we could actually reveal things that were negative about the home before they even saw the home. And that was our whole premise of the business model. So now we have, last year, October, November, we got exposed to this thing called Chat GPT. Before that, there was a little bit of stuff with Jasper and sort of some of the stuff that sort of was out there. But Chat GPT, when it rolled out, GPT 3.5 and 4, it's fundamentally changing what we believe the future of real estate will be like. There will be more disruption in real estate in the next 5 years because of AI than any litigation that takes place in the industry. Litigation is whatever it is. We'll just put it on one side. But the fact that consumers will have their AI, I think Bill Gates just mentioned, there was an article that came out maybe 2 or 3 days ago around the fact that in 5 years, consumers will have their own AI agent, not real estate agent, but agent for all parts of their life that will actually simplify all kinds of stuff. And so I'm really excited from an innovator's perspective about what that means for consumers, agents, brokerage, all the participants, whether it be title and escrow, mortgage, home ownership in general. When there's affordable AIs that are really good from a consumer's perspective, think about all the benefits that consumers can get. Now, will that change it being a relationship-based business, which is what I was talking about earlier? I don't know that it will, but it will maybe simplify or streamline your way to get in relationship with the type of agent that can properly represent you. And maybe that does mean maybe for some consumers, commission is way more important than the relationship. But maybe it will actually tie you to a consumer, to an agent that maybe that charges less or rebates more or what have you, and matches up with you based on other ingredients to be the type of agent that you'd like to work with. It's entirely possible that AI changes the entire game, but that's innovation. That's innovation. If you think about it, since the time somebody decided that a wheel was a pretty good thing, to the printing press, through the Babbage machine, to the first big computers that took up huge rooms, to now you've got more power in one chip on your iPhone than they had an entire data center back in the 1960s. and now AI is able to be, used, on a massive scale to do really cool stuff. It's going to change the game. Now, the flip side is I think that real estate agents are really well positioned to take advantage of AI earlier in the game. They've got access to tools like ChatGPT 4 Turbo, and they can upload, you know, content to actually create their voice and take a knowledge base of things to learn that consumers need to know about real estate. I'm actually going to see later on tonight. I'm going to see Peter Diamandis, and there's an X Prize event here in New York City. We just finished the DA Davidson conference earlier today, Michael and I. But for the January-February issue of Success Magazine, it's our AI issue. And Peter was unavailable to actually talk to Katie, our editor-in-chief, to do the interview, but we interviewed his AI. We spent 3 hours, when I say we, it was Katie, spent 3 hours interviewing Peter's AI to actually build the article. Think about it as a real estate professional, when your customer, when your potential seller or buyer can spend hours having a conversation with you as an AI to learn all the things that you found important in the real estate process, plus the rules and regs, plus the all of the mortgage information, plus all the, how properties get closed, and build that sort of relationship with your AI. So when you connect in person, they know, like, trust you, actually know how you make decisions, because all that's sort of been programmed into your AI or digital self. And you can have hundreds, if not thousands, of conversations. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday about this, maybe it was 2 days ago, that there are going to be personas, and I think about somebody like Dave Ramsey. He obviously thinks about home ownership in the context of how that all takes place, and having people be able to help you through that journey because they've built a reputation around what does it mean to be a responsible homeowner, or Grant Cardone, who talks about being an investor. And so your persona can be represented through the individual and AI. So I'm super excited about where AI is going to take us. Probably the thing that I spend more time focusing on. I did a talk at our regional rallies. I used ChatGPT to actually build me my entire flow of my conversation. I went off script almost immediately, but it was fun to actually build this stuff using what's available right now off the shelf.
Thanks, Glenn. That is such a relevant part of the State of the Union, right? These lawsuits are getting a lot of airtime, but there's so many other changes that are exciting for us and our agents. So appreciate you speaking to it. I did want to note, we're seeing a lot of questions about, are we as eXp or the industry going to see changes in NAR's role, MLS's role? Are we going to see changes about agents that are, their requirement or lack thereof, whatever it may be, to be part of these groups and organizations? And the only thing I would offer, because I don't think that it's necessarily appropriate to get into on this call, but for those listening, right, I mean, we are careful not to speak to and address ongoing litigation in a way that could be concerning but on that topic, I did just want to encourage agents, to the extent these sorts of questions are trickling up for you and feel urgent or concerning, to definitely reach out to your brokers and feel free to have that conversation and share thoughts with management. As you guys know, I think Glenn said at eXp Connie, there's not a chat he hasn't answered. So I'm maybe encouraging, he's gonna kill me, right? He's gonna get flooded with messages. But I did just want to say, I think while we may not address that specifically on this call, raise a hand with the broker, reach out to management. With that said, you guys, I thought an appropriate question to cap off the discussion, and one that's come up a few times, I've seen a lot of people thumbs up it, and so I think they definitely like to get an answer. It's just, and it's to your point earlier, Leo, about citizen lobby. Someone said, can eXp guide us on specific legislation to speak to, or are they saying, would we just call them and say protect buyer representation? So I just thought I'd ask each of you guys to give your short opinion on why you feel these lawsuits could result in negative outcomes for the industry at large, but especially for consumers. And it could maybe guide some of that dialogue for folks that are wanting to do citizen lobby activities.
So I can start on that one. Actually, I do think that Carolyn Merchant and our marketing team did have some talking points regarding these lawsuits, and I know that it was posted on Workplace Chat. So we'll make sure that posted on Workplace. We'll make sure that that communication gets circulated again. But you know what's interesting? I know that Glenn had mentioned the fact that we're in 24 countries now. There is a lot of precedent that's happened in other countries where they might have had very similar things happen, where the fear of the industry changing, going away, changing in some manner that will cause people to lose their jobs, lose their livelihood. This has happened before in other countries. There used to be a system where both buyer and seller compensation was really prevalent. One that comes to mind is Australia. Buyer representation did change in Australia, but they have an incredibly vibrant industry. Things adapted, people adapt. We are the most agile company out there in this industry. As Glenn said, we're the largest independent in North America. We're the largest independent in this industry. We are becoming very agile. And so we will respond to whatever things are put in front of us. And so going back to the statement that Glenn had said earlier, the focus we should have is relational. The focus we should have is on our clients and what we do on a day-to-day to make sure that we are serving our clients in what is their most important purchase in their lives.
Thanks, Michael. I'm sorry, guys. I was getting off mute. I appreciate it. Leo or Glenn, do you guys want to share your maybe take on that as well as just a quick follow-up?
Yeah, one thing to remember is there is so much more to come, right? We're early on in this cycle. These lawsuits were just filed. The different variations of the outcome, it could be 1 to 1,000 to 100, if you will. So I think everyone needs to take a breath. Remember what it is we do. There is 4 to 7 million American families that sell their homes every year, and they need an expert to hold their hand. On average, the American family moves 7 times in their life, 4 times as a renter, 3 times as a homeowner. What we do is a highly infrequent, very expensive and emotional transaction. And as disruption has attempted to completely remove the agent in the past, what everyone's found out is when it comes to it, people look for an expert. People look for someone who's gone down this road and delivers a lot of value in their life. And that's why year over year over year, the percentage of folks who choose to list with an agent versus for sale by owner or choose buyer representation, which currently today is not required in any way. You know, you can go buy anything off of the MLS and contact the listing agent directly. So I think by large, folks vote with their behavior, and it is important that agents are able to communicate it, right? So again, there's lots of questions of how will we adjust. We are reacting to requirement changes real time. It might not affect some of you if there's no updates to agreements or terms or processes of doing things in your local market. And again, we're here as a platform to support you guys. We provide rules of engagement to keep you compliant within the states that we do business in. And outside of that, we're not here to dictate your model. There could be multiple models, whether someone wants to rebate a commission or do a flat fee or, however you choose to structure your business. We're here to support you, to allow you to build your entrepreneurial dream while servicing the people that trust you every day.
I think Leo, you definitely addressed and Michael addressed most all of it. The other thing, and I do get to obviously visit because of the international nature of the company. If you look at other countries, whether it be the UK, it takes an average of 3 to 6 months to sell a home. And you look at a lot of these countries, like we've actually streamlined and created the smoothest marketplace. Now, I don't say we created that because we didn't create it. We are simply participants in a very efficient model for buyers and sellers. But you go into a number of countries, I mean, people will try to sell their property. They'll put it up and they'll get frustrated because their property isn't selling. You look at, all kinds of markets around the world. We've got lots of experience in Mexico because we've got agents down there and people trying to sell real estate, and there's not a transparent system, and so they're offering, we get people saying we'll give you 10% to bring buyers to our properties to sell our product down here. We don't, I mean, that's not something we do like from the US, but you look at other parts of the world and it's a really crazy thing to think about what these less ubiquitous markets look like. It becomes really inefficient for both the buyers and sellers in a lot of markets around the world. Is ours perfect? Absolutely not. But there is no market around the world that remotely resembles perfect. And I think that's one thing that everybody needs to keep in mind, that there is no one perfect model. And yeah, maybe there's some disruption, maybe litigation, DOJ, whatever, changes the model up somewhat. And we all need to adapt to whatever changes come our way. But I think that the North America, US and Canada specifically, benefit from all of the things that have been put in place. And it doesn't matter what product or service is being sold, there will always be a segment of that population that will complain about the cost of that product or service. And if you can put enough of those people together, anybody can sue anybody in this country.
Yeah. I certainly appreciate that point, Glenn. As an attorney, it is a sad reality, but it is one we're dealing with. Quickly, I wanted, Michael, to invite you to address representation agreements. Are we seeing any changes on that in the short term coming from eXp?
So I'm happy to do that. Yes, actually, our Holly Mayberry and VP of Global Ops has been leading the charge there. And next week, we are actually going to be releasing a buyer exclusive representation agreement that our agents across the United States can be using for that. So we are going to be releasing that just next week.
And I'll just to that end, we're not mandating it. Agents can still build their businesses the way they want to build them. Like that's one of the things I want to sort of talk to. And I know we haven't talked about that particular question in advance, but I was one of those rogue agents that never used a buyer agency agreement. I said to buyers that I worked with, I don't want you to feel obligated to work with me if I'm not doing my job. But there's other benefits that come from it. So, the reality is there's ways to use it in a very constructive way to help your buyers actually see inventory that maybe they wouldn't normally see. Maybe ways to get them into properties that you think might be coming on the market that may not be on the market now. And so the ability to use these agreements to proactively find inventory, especially in this market right now, there's not a lot of inventory, but to proactively go after inventory that may not be on the market because the seller doesn't really think he or she can sell at this point, based on the fact that they're going to be maybe subject to substantially higher interest rates. But maybe you represent a motivated buyer who's willing to ease the pain of changing properties, and all of a sudden it opens up opportunities. So there's no mandate around these things, but use them as tools to build the types of businesses that you want to build. Because at the end of the day, it's not about building an exact same practice of real estate from agent to agent, from team to team, or from state to state or community to community. It's about adapting your business model to get a share of the marketplace by showing your unique value proposition to the marketplace.
Yeah. And if I may, and Michael, this is in part my fault. I think I used the wrong term, and I just want to clarify, right? the changes you just spoke to coming down the pipe in the next week, right? This isn't a change from what we've always encouraged,
Correct.
which is the use of buyer representation agreements, and we'll continue doing so. So I apologize for the misnomer there, but just wanted to take a chance to clarify.
But Olivia, while I
Yeah.
have you, could I ask you a question, because it keeps coming up, and we're trying to answer questions that are coming to us while we're here live as well. One of the questions that keep coming up was one of the headlines this week was the fact that some individual teams, and I'll use that word loosely, were named in lawsuits, and of course some teams within eXp are concerned about that. Could I ask you the legal clarification of teams and our position on that? So I think it'll put a large amount of people at ease.
Yeah, you bet, Michael. With, of course, the legalese caveat that this isn't legal advice. One benefit of being with a brokerage rather than an independent is that the brokerage, could offer and assume some of that risk, take it from the individual agents, right? As Leo mentioned, we have not seen individual agents named yet, but I also want to reiterate something Leo said, which is that we are at stage one of this trend, of these lawsuits, notwithstanding what has happened in Sitzer. And it can go so many different directions. So while we haven't seen that trend yet, we certainly can't guarantee that that's not an allegation that could be made. With that being said, though, the comment about teams was that, this Texas lawsuit that just happened this week, my understanding is that those are both independent teams, but also franchise teams that operate as a legal entity, call it Team LLC. At eXp, we refer to our teams as agent teams, but really they aren't doing so under a unique entity, right? It's a group of agents who are working with, be it a similar locale or name, but that is a unique distinction between an eXp, what we would refer to as an eXp team of agents, right? It's just a group of individual agents as opposed to these indies or franchise teams that are unique entities. So that's the distinction we're trying to make there, is that while we've seen teams named, that wouldn't even really be a legal feasibility in eXp's case.
I think we just got a collective sigh from a lot of people.
Gosh, and I think that this call is also evidence, right, that you guys we're proactive. We're trying, we always, right, are agent centric and are trying to navigate this in the industry, consumers' best interest, as well as for our agents. With that, you guys, I think it's probably a fair time to wrap it up, but I wanted to open the floor. Is there anything Glenn, Leo, Michael hasn't been said or addressed that you guys want to raise or just reiterate?
I just want to reiterate that, this is a very high priority for us. We take the responsibility of making sure that we are as protected as we can be as the folks affiliated with us. And we take what we do as a profession very seriously. We truly think we add value to transactions and as well as consumer representation. It's the army of agents in this country that educate first-time homebuyers on the ability to buy a house with a low down payment loan and a down payment assistance program, and help them find those grants from their local municipalities. And take a family who net worth as a renter more than 10x's as a homeowner on average statistics. And that home is the one that gives the ability for that first generation to become, the first member to go to college, to start that business. Homeownership is the foundation of this country's economy. And we want to make sure that that opportunity stays available for everybody. And we truly think that that's what we do.
I always love it when Leo starts getting emotional. But you can tell where our heart is, where we are from a leadership perspective. We wanted to all get together to talk to you, to know how transparent we are. As Leo had mentioned, Glenn, Leo, myself, we're all agents. We understand what an agent goes through every single day, what they're going through to serve their clients. And when our industry is threatened, we want you to know that we are here together collectively to help guide you in the best way that we can. As Glenn was mentioning earlier, the relational currency is so important. It is what we do. It is what every agent does with their clients. It is what we do with every agent across the globe and everyone who is part of this eXp family. We are here. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. We are here to shift and pivot as we need to with everything that's there. Reminders, once again, we are the largest independent in our industry. We have zero debt. We are able to pivot when need be, and we are here to serve all of you.
Awesome. Well, first, real estate, has been the profession that I've chosen to be in for the last 22 plus years. And it has been, it's still very much a industry of innovation and bringing forward new products and services for consumers, for agents, for other players in the real estate space. We see lots of new innovations taking place all the time. However, it's also an industry that at the end of the day is one that is, again, back to relational. There's obviously when the market's slow, which it is, we see agents that will leave the business because it isn't a business that ultimately they can afford to stay in with lower transactions. But it's still an industry with over 1 million real estate professionals that are there in neighborhoods, in communities that do much more than list and sell real estate. There's so much community give back by the top agents and those that are doing real estate at a high level that goes beyond we'll say the commission generated in a sale. I find that real estate professionals are the most giving and generous in their community. That's what builds their brand in their local market, so that clients want to use them in the purchase and sale of property, and that results in reputations of high quality individuals in the field. And so for me, I'm still honored to be working in this industry, and honored to be working with agents that are both affiliated and non-affiliated with eXp, and share stages and have conversations and break bread and go to industry events and all of those types of things to enhance home ownership at a very high level. I mean, we have one of the highest home ownership rates in the world, and I think that's because of the ease at which this industry has made home ownership, but also the ability to sell what can be an illiquid asset, which is in a lot of countries takes a lot longer and a lot more work and a lot more upfront costs for consumers. So, keep on innovating wherever you're at, whichever, as agents, brokerages, brands, new entrants, et cetera, into the industry. I'm all about entrepreneurship and disruption. This model that we've built is considered to be disruptive. And I love the concept of disrupting by innovation. And so with that, keep on innovating, do right by your clients. And at the end of the day, I think all this will result in maybe some changes, but I don't think it's going to impact those who are providing great value in their local markets.
Wonderfully said, Glenn. Again, Glenn, Michael, Leo, thanks for sharing your thoughts today. Really helpful, and I'm seeing a lot of wonderful feedback in the chat. Appreciation for the time you guys have made to share your thoughts on this. So with that, we'll end it, and thank everyone for attending.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you for moderating. Thank you.